Welcome to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. This is what's been going on in Iran and the Middle East in the past 24 hours. The Middle East ceasefire architecture is under its most serious strain since April, and the key pressure point is Lebanon. That may sound strange when Israel and Iran are again trading fire directly, but the strategic heart of this crisis is not just what flew through the sky. It is whether Washington can keep Iran at the table while Israel continues a campaign against Hezbollah that Tehran says must stop before any broader deal can land. Here's the shape of it. Iran has tied the future of U.S.-Iran diplomacy to Israel's actions in Lebanon. Israel is telling its own public, especially northern communities battered by Hezbollah fire, that it cannot leave Hezbollah sitting across the border with the same threat profile. President Donald Trump is trying to hold the whole thing together with one hand on Benjamin Netanyahu and the other hand waving Tehran back to negotiations. That is a lot of plates spinning. And right now, the plates are doing that cartoon wobble before one of them hits the floor. The latest chain began Sunday, June 7th, when Hezbollah fired rockets toward northern Israel. Israel responded with a strike in Beirut's southern suburbs. Iran then fired ballistic missiles at northern Israel for the first time since the April ceasefire. Tehran framed the move as retaliation for the Beirut strike and a warning that attacks on Hezbollah would trigger consequences. The tactical details matter only because of the strategic message. Iran is trying to make Lebanon inseparable from the wider Iran war settlement. Iran's initial response looked calibrated. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said it targeted Ramat David Air Base, claiming aircraft involved in the Beirut operation flew from there. Israeli defenses reportedly intercepted the missiles, and there were no immediate casualties. Tehran's language was classic deterrence theater, a warning now, broader action later if Israel keeps going. The message to Washington was just as important as the message to Jerusalem. If the U.S. wants a deal, it needs to restrain Israel in Lebanon. Israel did not leave it there. Early Monday, June 8th, it struck targets in western and central Iran, including reported military and air defense sites and the Mashhar petrochemical complex in southwestern Iran. Iranian media reported explosions in several cities, including Tehran, Isfahan, Karaj, and Tabriz. Iran answered with additional missile waves. The bigger point is this: Israel showed it is willing to preserve escalation dominance even when Trump is publicly and privately urging restraint. That puts Washington in a rough spot. Trump publicly demanded that Israel and Iran immediately stop shooting. He reportedly told Netanyahu not to retaliate after Iran's first salvo. He also said he was not happy with Israel's Beirut strike and told media that Netanyahu would have to accept whatever deal Washington negotiated with Iran because Trump calls the shots. Well, the shots are not looking very called right now. Israel's follow-on action gave Tehran an opening to say what it already wanted to say. Washington either coordinates with Israel or cannot control it. Neither version helps U.S. diplomacy. Inside Israel, Netanyahu has a domestic political problem that points toward more Lebanon operations, not fewer. Northern residents have endured Hezbollah rockets and drones for years, and many want the threat removed before they accept any ceasefire. Avigdor Lieberman has talked about arming Lebanese militias, a throwback to the 1980s playbook. Bezalel Smotrich has pushed more maximalist ideas about southern Lebanon. Netanyahu himself has leaned into the moment, saying Israeli forces crossed the Litani River, captured the Beaufort Ridge, and would deepen their hold in areas previously controlled by Hezbollah. That is where the historical alarm bells start ringing. Israeli analysts are comparing the current mood to 1982, when Israel's invasion of Lebanon led to an 18-year occupation. Beaufort Castle carries heavy symbolism. The fact that Israeli leaders are celebrating its capture again has some Israeli historians saying this feels like déjà vu, with a soundtrack nobody asked to replay. The strategic risk is clear. A temporary security zone can become a long-term occupation if there is no exit strategy and no credible force able to replace Hezbollah in the south. Lebanon, meanwhile, is paying a brutal price. Prime Minister Nawaf Salam said Israel carried out nearly 3,500 airstrikes and more than 400 controlled demolitions between the April 17th Lebanon ceasefire and June 7th. More than 1 million people, about one-fifth of Lebanon's population, have been displaced since the conflict widened on March 2nd. A weekend Israeli strike killed 3 Lebanese soldiers, including Brigadier General Wissam Sabra. That matters because the Lebanese army is supposed to be part of any stabilization plan, and every hit to its credibility makes the diplomatic architecture weaker. The maritime picture is where this crisis goes global fast. Iran is trying to turn the Strait of Hormuz into leverage, not just geography. U.S. Central Command said U.S. forces shot down 2 Iranian attack drones threatening international maritime traffic in the strait on June 6th. Iranian officials are also floating transit fees, with one parliamentarian claiming Iran has collected between $1.5 million and $2 million per ship through barter and cryptocurrency. Iran's ambassador to Moscow, Qasem Jalali, said Hormuz would reopen under conditions set by Iran and Oman, including fees. Washington hates that idea, for obvious reasons. If Hormuz becomes a toll booth run by Tehran, global energy markets start pacing the room like they've had 6 espressos. Then the Houthis stepped back into the frame. Yemen's Houthi movement fired toward Israel and announced a ban on Israeli maritime navigation in the Red Sea. That threatens Bab al-Mandab, the gateway into the Red Sea and Suez route. Pair that with Hormuz pressure, and now you have 2 choke points in play. This is the kind of map problem that makes energy traders, naval planners, and insurance markets all reach for the same bottle of antacids. Oil markets noticed immediately. Brent crude rose above 96 per barrel, with some reporting showing gains of more than 4%. West Texas Intermediate moved toward $95. Prices remain below the March peak near 120, but the concern is not just today's exchange. It is the prospect that diplomacy fails while Hormuz remains constrained and the Red Sea becomes contested again. The financial fight is also heating up. U.S. officials are reportedly considering using frozen Iranian assets to help Gulf allies repair damage from Iranian attacks. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Qasem Garibabadi rejected that outright, saying Iran's money is not war spoils and not a payment fund for Washington's partners. That issue is explosive because Iran wants access to frozen funds as part of a broader settlement, and sitting behind all of this is the nuclear file. Iran warned it would respond to any International Atomic Energy Agency resolution against it, while accusing Rafael Grossi of bias. Washington is reportedly pushing for answers on bombed nuclear sites and enriched uranium. So Tehran sees Israeli strikes, U.S. asset threats, IAEA scrutiny, and maritime confrontation as one pressure stack. That is a lot for any negotiation to carry, and this one was already limping. Thanks for listening. We're building something special here, and you're part of it. If you haven't yet, leaving a review or a quick comment goes a long way in helping others find the show. And if you want to go deeper, we publish a daily intel brief on Substack at restrictedhandling.substack.com, covering Russia, China, Iran, the Middle East, and the DPRK in more detail. Take care and have a great day.